Welcome to This Explainer. I'm so glad you're joining me today because, well, we're stepping into a profoundly emotional, incredibly tense space. We're going to take a deeply personal journey into the tortured mind of Winston Smith, specifically diving into the brilliant study notes for Chapter 3 of George Orwell's 1984. We aren't just looking at a dystopia from the outside here. We're going to really feel what it's like to live inside a world where human emotion, memory, and objective reality are actively being hunted down and destroyed.
And that brings us straight to the party's ultimate slogan. Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. Let that sink in for a second. It's chilling, right? This isn't just some abstract political philosophy. It's a terrifyingly effective weapon. And as we'll see throughout this explainer, it's a weapon that's actively dismantling the very soul of our protagonist, Winston.
Let's dive right into part 1, the tragedy of dreams. So before Winston even faces the waking nightmare of Oceania, we find him seeking emotional refuge in his subconscious. In this first, deeply tragic dream, Winston, who estimates he was just 10 or 11 when his mother disappeared in the purges of the 1950s, sees her sitting deep underground. She's holding his tiny, quiet baby sister. They're trapped inside a sinking ship, looking up at him through this darkening green water. And Winston? He's safe up in the light and air. You can imagine he feels this crushing heavy guilt because he knows they are dying specifically so that he can live. But the most shattering part of this incredible female sacrifice? There's absolutely no blame or anger on their faces, only a sad, quiet acceptance.
This beautifully tragic image actually triggers a profound realization for Winston upon waking. He realizes that true tragedy is practically impossible in his current world. Why? Because tragedy, real tragedy, belonged to an ancient time, a time when people had privacy, love, and loyalty to their families without needing a political reason for it. Today, under the party's rule, those deep, sustaining emotions have been literally eradicated. The party's reality has been totally hollowed out, leaving nothing but fear, hatred, and physical pain.
But Winston's mind doesn't just linger in sorrow. It shifts to a recurring landscape he calls the Golden Country. It's this internal refuge of natural freedom. In this field, another powerful female presence emerges, a dark-haired girl walking toward him. With a single careless movement, she just tears off her clothes and throws them aside disdainfully. And Winston doesn't feel sexual desire here. Instead, he's completely overwhelmed with admiration. That graceful, defiant gesture feels so powerfully untamed to him that it could, on its own, completely destroy Big Brother and the Thought Police. It's an ancient form of freedom so profound that he wakes up with a single word on his lips: Shakespeare.
Moving on to part 2, the brutality of waking.
Of course, the serenity of that dream world simply cannot last. Suddenly, a piercing, metallic whistle tears through the room from the telescreen. It's 7:15 a.m., the mandatory wake-up call for office workers. The dream is totally shattered, and Winston is rudely, violently jolted right back into the oppressive reality of Oceania.
And I mean, the very second his feet touch the floor, the physical degradation begins. Because outer party members receive this tiny, almost useless amount of clothing coupons a year, pajamas are just too expensive. So Winston is forced to sleep and wake up completely naked, shivering as he grabs a dirty undershirt. Immediately, he gets hit by a violent coughing fit that completely empties his lungs, literally forcing him flat on his back just to catch a breath. The agonizing strain makes his veins swell and causes this varicose ulcer on his leg to itch intensely. This is his body, folks, completely broken by the state.
And there is absolutely no time to recover. Consider the harsh reality of this daily routine. An aggressive, muscular female fitness instructor suddenly appears on the telescreen, barking orders at the 30 to 40 group for their mandatory morning exercises, which they call the physical jerks. Winston has to stand at attention. He forces a fake smile of grim enjoyment onto his face because, well, looking unhappy in front of the screen isn't just a faux pas, it's deeply, deeply dangerous.
That leads us into part 3, the erasure of history. So as Winston is mechanically moving through his exercises, his mind wanders back into the hazy topography of his earliest memories. He recalls an air raid from his childhood, most likely an atomic bomb. In a crowded, dimly lit subway station, Winston remembers a drunk old man, reeking of gin, crying bitterly. Even as a child, Winston understood this man was suffering an unbearable heartbreak, probably over a grandchild killed in the blast. The old man just kept muttering over and over, "We didn't ought to have trusted him." Now the crucial, truly terrifying point is this: Winston can no longer remember who them actually referred to. The objective facts are melting away, leaving only this raw, lingering emotion. And you have to understand, this loss of facts is entirely by design.
Winston reflects on the terrifying geopolitical reality of Oceania. His country is always at war, but the enemy constantly changes. Right now, Oceania is at war with Eurasia and allied with East Asia. Officially, the party claims this has always been the case. Always. But Winston clearly remembers that just 4 years ago they were actually at war with East Asia. Because the party alters all written and spoken records to match their current narrative, this truth exists only inside Winston's own fading memory. A memory that the party fully intends to eventually destroy.
Let's look at part 4, the paradox of doublethink.
So, how does an entire society function when history is rewritten daily? Well, it requires a complex, deeply unnatural psychological framework. The mechanics we're about to explore represent the exact psychological self-deception required just to survive, a concept that is absolutely central to the party's total control over the human mind.
In newspeak, it's called reality control, but we know it best as doublethink. It's the ability to hold two completely contradictory opinions in your head at the exact same time and completely believe in both of them. Think about the terrifying mental gymnastics required for this. You aren't just telling a lie, you're actively restructuring your own brain to genuinely believe the lie while simultaneously knowing the absolute truth. Let's break down these mechanics together, because honestly, it is chilling. First, you must know the absolute truth. Second, you tell carefully constructed lies. Third, you must consciously choose to forget the original truth. And fourth, you must recall that truth the exact moment it becomes politically useful, only to instantly wipe it from your mind again right after. It requires a person to use logic to literally destroy logic, and to repudiate morality while vehemently claiming to be moral. Even understanding the word doublethink requires you to use doublethink. It's the ultimate inescapable psychological trap.
Which brings us to our final section, Part 5, The Terror of Surveillance. We are abruptly brought back from these deep philosophical thoughts to a feeling of intense, physical claustrophobia. Winston is still struggling through his morning stretches, right? His mind is swirling with unprovable lies, like the party history books claiming the party actually invented airplanes. Winston vividly remembers seeing airplanes in his early childhood, before the party even existed, but without physical evidence, everything just melts into mist. The fitness instructor suddenly orders everyone to bend over and touch their toes. Winston absolutely loathes this. It sends shooting pains from his heels to his back, threatening to trigger another one of those lung-emptying coughing fits. And in this moment of intense physical pain, we see the sheer vulnerability of constant, unblinking surveillance.
Because suddenly, the instructor's sharp, aggressive voice screams through the telescreen directed right at him. 6079 Smith W. Yes, you! Bend lower, please. The screen isn't just broadcasting to him, you guys. It is actively watching him. Winston instantly breaks into a hot sweat of utter panic. He's totally cornered. But he knows he must keep his face completely inscrutable. Even a tiny flicker of fear or resentment in his eyes could give him away to the thought police. The instructor brags about her own fitness, reminding them they have to stay fit for the soldiers on the front lines. Desperate to escape her wrath and avoid deadly suspicion, Winston makes a violent, agonizingly painful lunge forward. With his knees totally straight, he successfully touches his toes for the very first time in several years. It's a victory, sure, but a deeply painful, degrading one just to survive another morning.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer today. Winston's desperate morning routine is a microcosm of a society designed to crush the human spirit, erasing love, history, and truth until absolutely all that remains is the party. I want to leave you with this final, chilling thought to reflect on. If your memories were the only physical proof of the past, how long could you hold on to the truth before it melted into mist? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating and harrowing material with me today.
Welcome to This Explainer. I'm so